Acts, the 16th chapter, the book of Acts, chapter number 16, verse 20. And they brought them to the magistrates and said, these men, being Jews, exceedingly trouble our city. And they teach customs which are not lawful for us, being Romans, to receive or observe. Then the multitude rose up together against them, talking about Paul and Silas. And the magistrates tore off their clothes and commanded them to be beaten with rods. And when they had laid many stripes on them, they threw them into prison, commanding the jailer to keep them securely. Having received such a charge, the jailer put them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in the stocks. We read these 4 or 5 verses that I just read here, and it wasn't a good day for Paul and Silas. How many of you ever had a day like these guys have just encountered? Truthfully, Paul and Silas just experienced a gauntlet of troubles and problems. I mean, they've been lied upon. They've been falsely accused. Anybody ever here been gossiped about? Had some untruths told about you? Then their clothes were stripped off of them. They were beaten with rods. Then they're commanded to be thrown into not just jail, not just the holding tank, but the inner prison, the cave, the darkest place, the lowest place in the prison, with their feet and their hands in stocks. Not a good day for Paul and Silas. Not a fun time. I don't know how many of us have had to encounter those kind of problems all within a matter of maybe a couple of hours, which was probably the case with these two gentlemen. We've all had our problems. We've all encountered hardships and disappointments, and we have been lied on, and some of us feel like we've been beat down and torn apart and all types of things. But I don't know that any of us have had to go through what these two guys had to go through, and all because they were doing the right thing. You know, I understand when we go through difficult times and we have problems because we've been doing the wrong thing and we've made some bad choices and we're living with the results of that. But what about when you're doing all the right stuff? All they were doing was proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ, telling a world that didn't know, a society and a culture that didn't know about Jesus, about the never-ending love and the grace of God. They were doing the right stuff, and yet still encountered this tremendous trouble and problem and torment and persecution in their life. That's pretty tough to swallow. It'd be real tough for me to swallow. I'd have a few conversations I'd want to have with God at that point and say, Lord, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to straighten things up a little bit in here. You're going to have to make the way a little bit easier. It was a lot easier doing what I used to do, but I want us to listen after that. Paul and Silas have been persecuted, have been lied upon, have been stripped and beaten, and now thrown into the inner prison with stocks and bonds upon their feet and their hands. We don't hear Paul or Silas praying, God, would you deliver us? God, would you work a miracle on my behalf? God, would you give us favor in an area where we don't have it? God, would you turn this situation around? You didn't hear them doing any name it and claim it and proclaim it. I proclaimed and I named that these prison doors are going to open. You know, they weren't trying to believe hard enough for God to work a miracle out in their life or any of that kind of stuff. You don't see any of that going on in Paul and Silas's life. But here's what happens in verse 25. It says, but at midnight, the loneliest and the darkest moment of the night, midnight. How many of you stay up till midnight? Carl. Of course, he sleeps till noon, so I mean, what? Midnight can be a lonely time if you're still awake. When everybody else has bedded down, the street is dark and it's quiet. You're sitting in your living room and you're looking outside the window and there's nothing going on. Nothing happening. It's dark. It's lonely. That's where they were. But it says at midnight, Paul and Silas, what were they doing? They were praying and singing hymns to God. Now, there's all these different factions in our faith, in our Christian faith. There's those who are they're the name it and claim it folks. You know, if you can speak it enough, it'll happen. And then there's the word of faith people. They're the people that, you know, if you believe it strong enough, if you can really believe it hard enough and you can wrap your mind around it, then it'll happen for you. I don't know that I fully embrace any of that. I partially embrace a lot of it. And that is that I believe there's power in the words that we speak. But that power is for us inside. For us to, I believe if you go around talking negativity and talking down and out and living and talking and thinking the worst in every situation, guess what you're going to usually end up with? But I believe that as we begin to believe and see the best for our lives, we begin to believe and see, let me change that, not the best. We begin to believe and see God in every part of our lives. You know what that means? That means the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. That as we read last week, he's working all things together for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So I believe in the power of profession. I believe that we shouldn't go around mully-grubbing and talking negativity and speaking and proclaiming bad and negative stuff on people, but I also believe our God is bigger than that. And I don't believe God's going to give somebody cancer because I spoke it on their life, because I believe my God is bigger than me. Would anybody say amen to that? As a matter of fact, while we're on that subject, just a little side note here. Have you ever thought about kind of the way we are? And I'm just talking, okay? We're just kind of talking. This ain't preaching. This ain't me trying to change anybody's doctrine or anything like that. You ever thought about something for a second? Where you think about when we go through stuff or we know people that's going through a really tough time in their life. And then all of a sudden you get these text messages that says, get everybody you know praying. Get this name on every prayer chain across the community. Get every church praying. We need everybody praying for this situation because this is a big deal. And then when I get those, I understand the meaning behind that. And I understand that, you know, we want people standing with us and believing with us. And there's value in that and there's good in that. But for some people, their mentality is the more people I can get praying, the better my chances are of getting the answer that I want here. And I think, you know, that makes God real little. As a matter of fact, that's not the God that I like to think about when I think about a guy that's sitting up on his throne and he's sitting there and he's waiting. Well, when they can just believe hard enough and they can believe strong enough, then I'm going to bless them. Then I'm going to heal them. Then I'm going to do. They're not saying the right things. They don't have the formula down right. They're saying it the wrong way. I wish they would hurry up and say it right so I could fix their situation. Wait a minute, there's only like 20 churches praying for that need. As soon as the 21st church starts praying for it, I'm going to go and I'm going to deliver and I'm going to heal. What kind of God is that?